All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone. To this Q&A. A question came in this week. I didn't get a chance to deal with it on Tuesday, so I guess we'll deal with it now, and something else maybe we'll try and hit as well. And that is, someone asked, can a Jew in training, a person in the process of conversion, and we'll make a distinction between a Jew and a non-Jew, or someone who stays a Noahide, right? We'll see, can a Jew in training, a person in the process of conversion, and again, not really going to make that much of a difference whether they're a Jew or not, or non-Jew. And that is, while they're in conversion, process of conversion, can they still watch movies? And the second question, follow-up, was, once a person converts, can a person watch from time to time? I don't know, reinvigorate, see something, but, even if there are gunshots, I think there are a lot worse things than gunshots. Whatever, but we'll hit the issue, even though we've spoken about it before in different contexts. The first question is a non-Jew. What's a non-Jew's obligation? Right? What's a non-Jew's obligation over here? Is a non-Jew obligated? Is there a problem with a non-Jew watching TV, watching movies, any of these things? Whether in conversion or not, right? Seems to me to be irrelevant because they still have the status of a non-Jew, right? So whether they're converting or not, I don't know, it makes that much of a difference. Even if they're a JIT. So I'll say like this, for a non-Jew in general, there are a number of issues that I would say are moral imperatives. I wouldn't say outright forbidden, but there are a number of moral imperatives. For a Jew, they're not moral imperatives, they'd be forbidden, right? What is that? What's the problem with watching a movie? So for a non-Jew, there might not be any problem, right? They don't have an obligation to learn Torah, right? They won't be liable for wasting time when they could have learned Torah, right? Certainly like a Jew would be. They're certainly wasting time. I don't think there's any question about that. But who says, all things being equal, says that's a problem, right? They don't have an obligation to certainly, learn Torah. They have to learn, what applies to them. But essentially, it's not a fixed amount of time. It's not like they have to learn all day long when they're not working. They don't have that obligation. Certainly don't have that obligation. So what about wasting time? Okay, so this might come under a moral imperative. But there are issues with language. Language for a non-Jew, again, may be a moral imperative. Cursing may not be a good thing, but the prohibition of cursing is using God's name, specific name of God. Other thing, using other names of God, may not be necessarily a prohibition and comes under the category of blasphemy. Right, the Torah prohibition and 10 Commandments, not taking God's name in vain, right, or cursing in God's name. So, someone cursing, again, if they hear cursing, is that the end of the world for them? I don't know, I don't know if it's the end of the world. Not a good thing, but, again, maybe it's a moral imperative. Now, what about immorality? Right, plenty of movies have immorality. So, is a non-Jew liable for that? Again, I would say it's a moral imperative, probably not a good thing. Right? Certainly not a good thing. A Jew, much more liable. I don't think there's any question, but we're not talking about a Jew at the moment. So what do I have? It's a waste of time. Right? Watching these things are a waste of time. Right? Does that apply to a non-Jew? I'd say no. Doesn't apply. Let them watch as much as they want. As long as they learn what they need to do to keep their own mitzvahs. right? They have they learn a little bit during the day. Who says they have to learn, majority of the day when they're not working or whatever? They don't have the same obligation. So they don't have the same obligation of learning Torah. They want to waste as much time as they want. Okay. Does that mean it's a good thing? No. Doesn't mean it's a good thing. But doesn't mean it's forbidden either. Now, hearing curse words for a non-Jew, is that forbidden? Wouldn't necessarily say it's forbidden either. Right? I don't think it's a good thing. I definitely don't think it's a good thing. But at the end of the day, I would say it's not beneficial. Now, immorality, watching things that you shouldn't watch, right? I.e., immoral things. So that might be a bigger issue. But again, we say what a person sees, they're not necessarily forbidden. For a Jew, it would be forbidden, right? It would come under the category of Gilui Arayos, immorality. One of the three things you have to give up your life for. For a Jew, if someone would say, I want you to be with this person, intimately, otherwise we're going to kill you, you have to die. You have an obligation to die. Does that apply to a non-Jew? No. Why? Sanctification of God's name only applies to a Jew. Now, seeing things that are immoral. Again, at best, I would say it's not a good thing to do. Even if you don't act on it, it's really not a good thing to do for a non-Jew. Obligation, I wouldn't say it's necessarily an obligation. Right? I would say it's a moral imperative. Right? So all these things, most of these things that we mentioned, TV shows, movies, whatever it is, game shows, whatever, if they're not Jewish, should be okay. Right? Should be okay. Now, I would say, I don't think it's beneficial. I think it's a total waste of time. You shut your brain off. You get bad messages. But even with all that, again, I would say it's no better than a moral imperative. It's a moral imperative. Does it make me a better non-Jew serving God? The answer is no. 100% no. You're not obligated. You're not obligated over here, but, I think it can stop a person from serving God properly. It can make you lazy. There are other factors involved, other things, but technically nothing wrong with it. Now, second part of the question is once you've converted. Okay, so now you're a Jew. So as a Jew, it's a different issue. If you're a guy, you got an obligation to learn when you're not working, right? You got to have fixed time for Torah. So all things being equal, if there's no bad language, no immorality, no bad values, which probably all these things come up, but okay, let's say all these values, the values you're going to get from it are good. Probably not, but let's say. So what would be the problem? Problem B, you're wasting time when you could be learning. That's probably the biggest issue. You're wasting time. Now, if you have other issues, you hear curse words, there are immoral things going on, bad messages, all those things have an effect on a person. So for a Jew to affect you a heck of a lot more than a non-Jew. But we always have to ask the question, even by a non-Jew. Whatever I'm involved in, does this make me closer to God or not? If it doesn't make me closer to God or I have a doubt, shouldn't do it. So the person says, what if there are gunshots in it? What if people get killed? It's all make-believe. Right? All these things are all make-believe. Doesn't matter. You see, a person get shot, killed, a lot of violence. So technically speaking, it can have an effect on a person statistically or psychologically. People say that, yeah, it does have a negative effect. You watch things that are violence, it can have a negative effect on a person. That mean they themselves 100% going to go out and do something violent? No. Does it have an effect on a person? Certainly does. A person sees that kind of things, even though it's fake, you lose sensitivity over here in different ways. But for a Jew, you get bad values, bad language, immorality, all these things. You could have been learning Torah, a lot of negative things. Again, I'm pointing out for non-Jews also negative. There are also many negative things there. It just doesn't mean that they're obligated in it. Meaning that if they do it, they transgress. Why? Because over here, the issue is these things are at best, I would say, a moral imperative. That's what they are. So if it's a moral imperative, it's not going to be forbidden for a non-Jew. It's not good for them. And anything not good, shouldn't do. For a Jew, it's a lot worse. It affects us much more in a negative way. All right? So therefore, for a Jew, it'll be much more severe. So the second part of the question is, okay, so once you converted, can you chill out and watch something? Again, you got a lot of negative things going on over here. If you tell me it's rated G, which most things aren't, so you don't have a problem with language, you could have a problem with the message. You could have other issues. Even cartoons, a lot of fun to watch. Entertaining. Also extremely violent, give off bad messages. Right? So, as a Jew, you got an issue. You got a much bigger issue. But say that, sometimes, life is just too heavy. I want to veg out with that. Right? The problem is that these things are addictive. It makes us lazy. It doesn't make us want to think. I remember years ago, they came up with this idea that, you're sitting in front of the screen, you're watching whatever you're watching, and God forbid you watch by yourself. So they created a couch potato. You sit them down right next to you. You're not alone. You're not alone over here. But again, that just destroys the mind. Now, there was a study done, if I remember correctly, many years ago in Tel Aviv University, that the more a person doesn't use their brain and they watch things on a regular basis, the brain over time atrophies. Meaning that it could potentially be a cause of dementia and Alzheimer's. It could lead to that. Why? Because your brain needs constant stimulation. Your brain doesn't get constant stimulation, it can atrophy over time. Right? Your brain can turn to mush in general. Again, depends how much you watch and what you watch and all these things. But the problem is most people, I shouldn't say, I don't know what the stats are. But my guess is that most people do not read for fun. I'm not going to say everybody. I'm not going to say it's the majority. There are a lot of people who don't read for fun. They don't read in general. Some do more, some do less. But if it's a choice, of watching something, and not having to think, and reading a book, what's the person going to do? They're going to choose the first thing. They'd rather watch something than read a book. Again, I don't know exactly what the stats are, but it seems pretty clear. See people on smartphones, their smartphone is attached to their nose. They can't look up, right? They're too busy looking, whatever. And I see a lot, going up north twice a week. So, I go to Central Bus Station, Jerusalem, waiting for my bus. And, most people on their smartphones, I'd like to say they'd be talking to someone else. Majority of the time, they're looking at a screen. So I'm sitting there waiting 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. And that's what people are doing. See them on the bus, same thing. See them at another bus station, same thing. That's what people do. Sitting there reading a book. I've seen people, actually I saw someone the other day. Most of the ride reading a book. Okay. He's doing something I can't read on a bus. Right? So, so I listen to classes, but Reading on a bus, that was impressive. There are a handful of people I've seen do that. Again, I'm not taking a survey. I'm just observation. Most people got their face in the screen. Now, how good can that be? Can't be that good. Tell me, someone's watching something educational. Someone's listening to a Torah class. Okay? That's not the majority of people. So they're wasting their time there. God forbid you might miss something. A news thing, an email, this, that. So that's worse. That's worse in a certain way because this causes lack of proper social interaction. Because you got your head in the screen. And anyone's got a phone, I just seen this over and over again. It's like trying to talk to them, it's like talking to a brick. Because that's where their head is. Their head is right in the phone. Right? So people, that have smartphones, in general, unless I see the thing is off or whatever, I won't even engage in conversation. You're going to say, come on. You go that far, someone's got their head in the screen, you can't have a conversation. If they put the phone down, it's one thing. But if they, if they have it in their hand, I don't even waste my time. I mean, nuts. Unfortunately, I think that's the norm. People are just so caught up in it, they have it in front of them. They might miss something, whatever. So, those things, I'm not even talking about being attached to a computer screen. It's just as bad, but you don't even need it. First, they got a smartphone, it's enough. I saw someone cross the street, saw people crossing. His face was in the middle of a phone. Saw people crossing, so he crossed. Right, then he crossed again. Didn't even look up. Right, if I would have beat, the person would have jumped, probably dropped dead of a heart attack. I was tempted, very tempted. I didn't want the repercussions. It's nuts. That causes a lot of problems. Main problem is social interaction. There's a joke, and not so far-fetched. You got a family sitting at the table. Right? They're eating dinner. So instead of one person saying to the other, pass the salt, they text it. You can say, come on, that's too far. It's not that far. I'm not going to say it's going to happen per se, but that's not out of the realm of reality. Totally not. People just caught up in this stuff. Totally caught up in this stuff. So again, should a person be doing it, watching this stuff while in conversion? No. Is it forbidden? I'm not saying it's forbidden. It's a moral imperative. It's fun. It's relaxing. It's enjoyable. It's vegging. You're vegging. You don't want to read something. Your mind is tired. So why not? If you're telling me you're watching something educational, you're learning about animals, other things, whatever, I can cut you some slack. Majority of people watching stupid things. That's what it is. They're just stupid. And a waste of time. But that doesn't apply to a non-Jew. Non-Jew can do as much as they want. Right? They have to learn what they need to do for themselves. They can say, okay, I'm going to learn 20 minutes a day. Fine. They don't have an obligation to learn more than that. As a moral imperative, yeah, these things are bad. But they're not going to fry out forever. They're not, it's not a Torah prohibition here. Not even a rabbinic prohibition. It's a moral imperative. But then the question was, once you convert, can you do that? No. 100% should be forbidden. Right? You got immorality, wasting time when you could have learned Torah. Bad language, bad ideas. I mean, a million things wrong, even with cartoons. If people think, oh, what's wrong with cartoons? Watch. You watch Tom and Jerry. Pretty violent, all these cartoons. give tremendous bad values. People don't think about it. No, it's okay. It's entertaining. I grew up on cartoons. I mean, even we're going to say, it's not bad language, whatever. It's totally violent. Yeah, it's funny. It's not going to say none. It's funny. It's enjoyable. But does that make you a better person and closer to God by doing it? No, certainly not. Right? Not to mention, the more a person does, it's like anything else. It's addictive. The more you do it, the worse it is. And, and then that can lead to, seeing immoral things, all kinds of things. So for a non-Jew, at best, it's a moral imperative. For a Jew, it's a lot worse. So someone asks from time to time, after I convert, can I do this? No. That was easy. Be forbidden. Right? Even if they're gunshots. Gunshots are not the worst thing. Violence, people getting killed, seemingly for nothing. Immorality, bad language, bad ideas. These are 10 times worse. 10 times worse. Right? But it causes negative things in the person themselves. Because it's not real. It's not real. It doesn't benefit you in a way that's going to bring you closer to God. Sports is no different. Sports, you don't want to say have immoral things, unless they're cheerleaders there, whatever, but in general, if you're watching it, at home, whatever the case is, it might not be so bad. Right? Maybe just wasting time when I could have learned Torah. Okay? Maybe that's the worst thing. But again, someone who grew up and enjoys watching sports, it's addictive. Doesn't matter if your team is good or not, it's addictive. Right? It doesn't help you concentrate. You want to learn Torah, someone told me this, and this goes on to another thing. Video games no different. Also total waste of time, violent, bad values, all kinds of things. And someone told me, why is it I can sit down and play a video game, and play for however long, and when I want to learn Torah, it's a lot harder. I was like, come on, you really asking me the question? They're like, why is it so difficult to get back into Torah? Because you shut off your brain. You shut off your brain, you're sitting there wasting time, you're having a good time. Now you want to study something that's mind-changing. Right? That's going to help me, be more moral, and all that. So why in the world would I think that's going to be easy to jump into after you wasted your mind playing video games or watching something? It's a lot harder. Your concentration goes down exponentially. Because then, then you're learning something and it's hard and, you don't know the answer, you don't know where to look. There's all kinds of things, then you say, wow, playing video games is a lot easier. Watching a movie is a lot easier. You're right. It's a lot easier. Doesn't make you a better person. Doesn't make you a more moral person, right? Certainly not. Right? It's an addiction. A person got a smartphone looking at the news. News can be an addiction. If you tell me a person's watching everything's educational, okay, but it's not true. It's just not true. Remember years ago, talking to students at Hebrew University, mentioning all these things. So someone piped up and said, I can watch the History Channel. I go, do you? They go, no, but I could. Go watch Doctor Who. I don't know if he's still around. I can watch that. Are you doing it? No. Of course not. They're not that interesting. Plenty of other things more interesting. But it's no different. It's an addiction. It's a total addiction. But it can lead to other things. It can lead to worse things. Totally lead to worse things. So again, as a non-Jew, you cut a lot of slack over here. A lot of slack. At best, it's a moral imperative. For a Jew, it's a lot worse. It's a lot worse. But I would say even for a non-Jew, you want to go on the right path. How are you going to go on the right path if you're addicted to this stuff? It's going to be much harder. Because remember, anything you do that's bad or potentially bad, what does it do? It attaches to your soul, sticks to you like glue. That's what it does. That's what impurity does. Sticks to you like glue. So if that's the case, If that's the case, it's much harder to fight once it becomes part of your psyche. Much, much more difficult. Now, if you tell me it made you a better person, come on. If someone says, wow, shouldn't we be setting time to study? Yeah. I'm not saying it's got to be all day. You have to have time to study. So a person can say, listen, I learn 2 hours a day, and those time I'm free, I'm going to watch things. Now, technically, as a non-Jew, there's nothing wrong with that. There'd be nothing wrong with it. But I guarantee those 2 hours you're going to study is going to be less. It's going to cut down into that. It's a lot more difficult. Definitely a lot more difficult. And then a person will get to the point where they're studying in front of the TV. I'm not going to say 100% it's going to happen, but it can happen. You have to have fixed time to study. Right? You should have fixed time to study. But what do you do when you're not studying? The person says, I want to chill. I want to relax. That's how I relax. But guess what? You relax with that, it doesn't stop there. It just continues, spirals out of control. That's what addictions do. Right? Now, a person, let's say, for instance, the person sees something and, let's say it's bad language, there's immorality, and then that immorality goes further. Right? That's all the evil inclination needs. Person saw a certain scene, sticks in your mind, and you look at other things. Right? That's what can happen. See, again, by a non-Jew, it's still not a good thing. I don't think there's any question it's not a good thing. It's just, for a Jew, it might be worse. Right? 100% it might be worse. So someone asks 2 questions about Noahide. Can a Noahide blow a shofar? No. For Rosh Hashanah, there's no obligation. Rosh Hashanah does not apply to Noahides. There's an obligation, let's say better. On Rosh Hashanah, there are 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. All of mankind gets judged. And the entire world gets judged in general. All of mankind, meaning non-Jews. Right? The judgment of the world. Judgment of man. Okay, so non-Jew gets judged. Do they have to hear a shofar? No. Should they hear a shofar? No. Doesn't apply to them. Totally doesn't apply to them. Right? So why are you going to blow a shofar for? Doesn't apply. Second thing is, can you have a mezuzah in their home? The problem is non-Jews should not have mezuzahs unless in the process of conversion. Why? Because the mezuzah has a tremendous amount of holiness. It has a tremendous amount of holiness. So if it's got a tremendous amount of holiness, a mezuzah and tefillin do not apply to non-Jews whatsoever. But if a non-Jew is in the process of conversion, so right before they convert, they should get tefillin without parchment in the tefillin and learn how to put them on. But non-Jews, they should not be putting on tefillin, and they should not have mezuzah on the door. If the non-Jews in the process of conversion, different issue. But a Noahide in general should not put a mezuzah on the door. Right? There's an errant holiness that only applies to a Jew, not a non-Jew. Right? So those 2 things, tefillin, phylacteries, whatever you want to call them, and a mezuzah 100% do not apply to non-Jews. Someone there points out Coyote and Roadrunner. Yeah, very enjoyable. Explosion falling off a cliff. Come on, Bugs Bunny, Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck, Tom and Jerry. I mean, the list goes on. Total violence. All right, no question. Yeah, so that's what I would say about non-Jews. Blowing shofars and other things. One other thing that I want to mention, I spoke about this also in Tanakh Talk. Anyone wants to look at it, I spoke about it there also. One thing I want to mention, because, it comes up again and again. And if it keeps, it comes up. So we have to deal with it. Right? And that is that what happens if we're going through a hard time? Right? Doesn't matter what the hard time is. Whether it's livelihood, whether it's family, whether it's both, whether it's health, it could be a million things we're going through. And let's say we continue to go through it. Let's say over time, continues for a month, right? We're in a certain trajectory. Seemingly, the only place we can go is up because we get knocked down and beaten down, and all that. May all be true. But see, there's a Christian idea or idea by others, maybe not just the Christians. And they say, listen, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm praying well. God should answer my prayers. Now, let me ask the $1 million question. The $1 million question is, what does God owe us? Hard question. Does God owe us anything? He gives us life. He breathes in us the spirit of life. Right? That's what the Torah says. Gives us the ability to speak, to make decisions. Now, we can do all kinds of things wrong. We can repent. We can work hard. Right? We can pray 3 times a day. We can do mitzvahs. We can give charity. We can do a million different things right. And guess what? We're still stuck in that situation. That situation goes on. So what would I say? So if a person's in a rut situation going on for a long time, and you still continue to pray and you say, God, you're the one in charge. I probably don't deserve spit over here, but you're the one in charge. I want you to take this away, take this suffering away. Now, does God have to? No, he doesn't have to. Why doesn't he have to? Because he doesn't owe us anything. And if he wants to squeeze us, and he wants to give us a hard time, and he wants to go through, to make us suffer, and to have us go through all kinds of trials and tribulations, guess what? He can do that. And he can do it for years. He doesn't have to stop. Why does he do it? We don't know. We don't know. Why I have to go through this, I have to go through that, go through the other thing. But there's a very serious mistake people make. And that is that I'm doing everything I can and I'm getting nowhere. Well, first of all, you're not getting nowhere. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Right? But at the same time, I'll throw it out. I'll make it even more graphic. The Chovos Levavos in Duties of the Heart says like this. He says that why do we deserve reward in the world to come if we do what he says? We do what God says. Why should he give us reward? Right? Imagine like this. The Mishnah Perkei Avos, Ethics of Our Father says, you want to get rewards. Why do you get reward? This is what you're created to do. You think you're a big person. You're learning Torah day and night. You got all this knowledge. Why do you think you're so great? That's what you're created to do as a Jew. So now you want reward. In my language, you want a hoodsie. Anyone from Boston knows what a hoodsie is, right? It was a Dixie cup made out of chocolate vanilla ice cream. Company was called Hood, right? So they called a hoodsie. So now you say, wow, God, I did what I was supposed to do. I want a hoodsie. I want reward. God says you want reward. That's what you're created to do. Forget the hoodsie. You don't deserve a hoodsie. You deserve whatever. You don't deserve anything. You're doing what I told you to do. Finished. Comes on the Chovos Levavos with an unbelievable chiddush. An unbelievable novelty. Says the Chovos Levavos in Duties of the Heart. You know why I get rewards? You know why I get reward over here? You get reward. You get reward because what does God do for us? God has mercy. God has compassion. And God says, you know what? Even though you don't deserve reward, you know why I'm going to give you a reward? Because it's a chesed. God says I'm going to give you a reward because it's a chesed. That's why. It's an act of loving kindness. Otherwise, do we deserve reward? No. If we're doing what God created us to do, to be in tune with his laws, to do what he says, why should I get reward? That's what I'm created to do. That's what the Mishnah says in Perkei Avos. Right? That's what it says in Ethics of Our Father. Why do I deserve reward? I don't deserve reward. I'm doing what I'm obligated to do. That's it. Don't be a pig. You don't deserve anything. Zero. We're an infinitesimally small speck of cosmic dust. right? When we look at the world in general, we're nothing. Zero. And God should give us this, that, and the other thing. God does take care of our needs. Does he owe us? He doesn't owe us. He gives us life. Just the opposite. We do so many things against him. Why should we be alive today? Think about what we did. Think about how we interacted with others. I could have a whole laundry list here. 10, 15 things. I could go through a whole list. You wouldn't even get up tomorrow. Myself included. We wouldn't even get out of bed. Why not? Because we realize we're lucky to be alive. Why doesn't God just help us? Because God has mercy. He has mercy. He doesn't have to have mercy. He doesn't have to have mercy. So now, so many people are going to say, I'm doing the right thing. Why am I getting knocked around? So I don't know the answer. We don't have an answer. I mean, the answer is everything we do is a trial. And we have to try and overcome the trials. But God deserves to answer me? Why? And if I prayed today, and I prayed well, right? And a person says, well, you know what? God's going to answer my prayers because I prayed well. You know what? You're in trouble, you say that. You're in serious trouble. Why? Because the person says they prayed well, God's going to answer my prayers because I prayed so well. Guess what? Your file now gets open. It's another way to open your file when you don't want it open. So God's going to say, oh, really? You prayed so well. You're asking me to do this, do that, and the other thing. Okay, let's see. Let's see where you're holding. Let's see where you're holding in the world. Let's see what you did today. Let's see what you did yesterday. Let's see what you did the day before. Let's see. Show me. Show me what you've done. God looks at the file and he says, okay, you got a C- in this, you got a D in this, certainly this, you got an F, this, you got a B, this, you got a B plus, okay. Right, so God goes through all these different things. We're going to pass the test. You don't want your file open when you don't need it. Only in Rosh Hashanah. So you got to say, but we're suffering over here. I agree. So the mantra is, like we always say, God, you're the one in charge. I'm doing the best. I want you to take this away. I want you to help me. And what can God say? You know what God can say? No. I'm not going to help you. This is a test. I want you to go through it. I want you to overcome it. I want you to pass the test. And it could be for 2 weeks. Could be a month. I had an Odyssey for 17 years. Not a couple months. Not 6 months. 17 years, something in my face on a regular basis. That's hard to take. Very hard to take. And I'll tell you myself, like good days and bad days. But seeing something in your face for so long and nobody cares and apathetic and all that, a little bit hard to take. But my question is, God, why are you doing this to me? That wasn't my question. Never had that question. Right? My question was, you're the one in charge. You can take this away whenever you want. Obviously, in different ways, I've not gotten the message. And I have what to work on. But you know what? At the end of the day, I was able to deal with it in different ways. Sometimes better, sometimes not. But not once. At least not that I remember. And if I forgot, then God should have mercy on me. But not once do I remember saying, God, what do you have to answer me. You have to do this. You have to take this away. That wasn't what I said. What I said was, you're the one in charge. I'm trying to do the best I can. I know I failed at this. I know I failed at that, and other things. And I don't deserve you to take it away. That's our attitude. I don't deserve it, but you should have mercy on me. And you know what? Sometimes it was better. Sometimes it was worse. And sometimes I was just on my knees for a while. And it wasn't pleasant at all. God deserves to do this. He doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't know us. Just like people say, you go to rabbinical court, they say they owe me. The rabbinical court owes you. I'm going to give everyone a free piece of advice. You go to rabbinical court, you do whatever they tell you to do. You don't like it, too bad. You do what they tell you to do. And that's how you're going to succeed. When it comes to God himself, you do what he says. Sometimes it'll be better. Sometimes it'll be easier. Sometimes it'll be harder. I understand. We want clarity. We want understanding. But we don't always get it. We don't always see it. And I've seen things, over the last few weeks, answered up certain things, but I never would have said that. I never would have connected those dots. You're going to tell me how to go around the world, lose all my money, go through this, go through that, the other thing, end up where I am today, living here 13 years, where two of my daughters can get married. Would I have thought that? Never. Not in a million years. Not in 10 lifetimes. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. So, yeah, a certain level of closure, sort of. But at the end of the day, God does not owe us anything. He gives us life. We should be thankful for that. Because I would venture to say, nobody ever wants to open their mouth and say, well, this isn't fair. How much worse could it be? Don't ask. Could be worse. Students of the Vilna Gaon were suffering from abject poverty. The Vilna Gaon before Shabbos would send them to the hospitals, visit sick people. They came into Shabbos different. You know why? Either they didn't have a lot of food, their body still functioned. They didn't have arthritis. They could get out of bed. They could change their clothes. They could do all kinds of things. I saw people in the hospital in pain. Can't get out of bed. Many things. See, we want answers. We want quick fixes. No such thing. There are a number of times God can put us through certain things in order that he brings out dormant character traits. Could happen. And those character traits never would come up if we didn't go through these things. Okay. Right? 100%. Even if a person's doing the right thing, and even if a person, you can't flinch over here. Person wants to take on extra learning. Person wants to give extra to charity if they can. Person wants to, there are many things a person can do. Try and change the situation. Right? The one thing you don't do is you don't spit in God's face while it's all going on. Right? You increase learning. A person wants to say Tehillim, they want to say Psalms, continue doing that. Right? But again, even doing all that, does that mean God's going to change his mind? No. 100% not. Right? Let's make it even more graphic. You take Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and they couldn't have children. Sarah never should have had children. It was miraculous God allowed her to have a child. Right? Her body wasn't capable of having children. So the commentary says, why did God give him that test? Right? A hard test for women who want to have children and have difficulty having children. Why did God give him that test? Because he likes the prayers of the righteous. You're going to say, come on. God's going to make someone suffer like that so he can hear their prayers. But those prayers come from the depths of their heart. When someone is lacking something in a major way, they pray different. They act different. Their actions are different. So your actions would never be like that if things were smooth. Right? If a person had a bill to pay in 2 days and they have zero idea where the money's coming from. It could be an electric bill, water bill, whatever. Certain things are going to get cut off. Other things, you are going to be praying like there's no tomorrow. But if you had enough money in the bank, it's going to get taken care of. You're going to pray the same way? Never. Never. So the question is, okay, person's learning a certain amount during the day. Should that change? even stressful times. No, just the opposite. We should increase learning, right? We should increase what we're doing to a certain extent. It doesn't have to be exponential. Person learns, let's say 2 hours a day, maybe she'll learn 2.5 hours a day. 2 hours and 20 minutes, you increase it. You show, God, I want to do more. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to show. I want to show that I want to change. And I want to show that I'm really serious in this and that. But again, the scary part is God could just say, no, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to squeeze you more. Now, it could be for more time, for less time. We don't know. And things could change overnight. But the mistake, and I've heard it from many different people, the mistake is, I'm doing this, I changed my life. What more does God want? Now, what does that statement mean? I'll tell you what that statement means in my eyes. In my eyes, the statement means like this. The statement means, God, I'm doing everything in my power. You deserve to fix it. Sorry, I deserve that you should fix and take care of it. That's not the right answer. It's totally the wrong attitude. Why? A person can say, God, you're the one in charge. God, you take care of all my needs. This is difficult. You're the one in charge over it. That's it. And if it's hard and it continues to be hard, you keep saying the same thing. And you show God how serious you are. And you continue learning, continue saying to him, and eventually it'll change or won't change. And even if that doesn't change, the person doesn't get the answer, where the answer is no, move on. That's what you have to do. You have to do whatever it takes to make ends meet and this and that, but also, even as Hashem b'simcha, we say every day, you got to serve God with great joy. I can do that. You're going to say, I'm going to be depressed. It's hard to serve God when you're being tossed around like a rag doll. True. But that's part of the test. Right? Isn't that what God did with Job? God said to the evil inclination, Mr. S, whatever you want to call him, do whatever you want to Job, don't kill him because he'll never say anything against me. Right? And that's what happens. Job gets tossed around, this, that, the other thing. Right? But in the end, his faith is strong. His faith is strong. Does God owe Job anything? What does he owe him? See, if everything's going good, so what can the evil inclination say? The evil inclination can say, you know what? You gave it to him so good. If you gave it to him bad and you make their life difficult, guess what? They're going to say all these things against you. So if a person would say, I changed my life, I kept Torah mitzvahs, and if a person, God forbid, would say, all the Torah mitzvahs I kept are not worth anything, look, what I'm going through, you lose all of them. Right? That a person should never say. But it's hard. Nobody said it's not hard. But to think that God deserves to answer my prayers, that's a mistake. That's a big mistake. Because in God's eyes, we don't deserve anything. Zero. He gives us life, gives us food, takes care of our needs. You want more? Don't be a pig. Oh, but this is hard. This is very hard to deal with. I didn't say it's not. Right? But the mistake is that God should answer my prayers. Is that it's not just God should answer my prayers. I deserve he should answer my prayers. Now again, I could go on for hours, going through a laundry list of things. You won't even feel like an ant. You'll go into an anthole, you'll never come out. Right? It's very easy to pick apart, pick apart people and the things we do wrong. But if you take a list of things that we're supposed to do on a regular basis, and we would give ourselves honestly a grade of how we prayed, how we talked, different things, but we would grade it the way it needs to be graded. Honestly, you won't get out of bed. I promise you, you won't get out of bed. Now, if that's the case, and that, not saying God is an ogre and God just wants to punish us. That's not the case. Right? But if we give God lip service on a daily basis, and we go through the motions, which is, doing things by rote, which is akin to spiritual death. And the prophets talk about it in a tremendously negative way. Why do we think God's going to answer us? I'll give an example. Look at what's gone on over the last year and a half. With Corona, everything shut down. Now, they seem to say this new strain, this Omicron, whatever it is, that if people get it and they have the vaccine, not going to affect them just about at all. Right? In a negative way. And here, Israel shut down everything. Right? People can't come here. Israelis can't go to red countries. Right? A little bit of panic. Okay, it's very contagious. Right? Certainly they're claiming. Right? But if what they're saying is true, let's just say, I'm not going to go into the whole vaccine thing. Let's say what they're saying is true. So a person got vaccinated. This is, you got a very high percentage, high chance that even if God forbid you get it, it's going to be nothing. So they're panicking over here. They want to, make sure no one can come in. Israelis can't go to red countries. Okay. Right. They want to nip it in the bud. But over the last year and a half, you know what? We're not in control. A stinking microbe is taking over the world. Shut down businesses, all kinds of things. Right now, when you look at it in general, without, speaking about it too much, you look at it in general, there's nothing more than miraculous. It's not just the flu, it's something that's taken over the world. Not just one country. Right? So now the question is, have we got the message that God is the one in charge? And God can shut down businesses, shut down airports. He can shut down everything in one shot. Make panic worse than any other quote-unquote natural disaster. Right? So this whole time, it's been a time to be introspective. People complain, I'll be inside. What am I going to do? Thank God for Netflix. Right? I heard someone say. So all these different things, the whole point that, if we have to be stuck at home is to be introspective. Yeah, kids running around not in school and Zoom and this. Yeah, it's chaotic. It's absolutely chaotic. But are we acknowledging the fact that God runs the world? Have we been introspective at all? That's what the message is. We need to be introspective. And if we're too introspective, we won't get out of bed, which is true. But think about it in God's eyes. Think about if we were God. I put on my funny George Burns glasses, my funny mustache, right? Think if we were playing God. And we're looking down at how the human race, gives them lip service, even by religious Jews. And see how they act. And say, what? I created mankind for this? Look at how they pray. Look where their thoughts are. So you tell me, come on, prayer is a serious thing. Prayer is something always needs to be strengthened. And there are other issues in the creation, like all kinds of things going on. God says, I understand that I created man. I created the world. I know what's out there. But this is how you serve me? So you say, but we're living in a cream puff marshmallow generation. Cut us some slack. Right? The Teflon generation, at least we're trying. Good. That's worth something. But the Chosel says we don't do 1/4 of what we're supposed to do. So if we don't do 1/4 of what we're supposed to do, some people can say, why bother? We're not going to get there anyway. We're just going to get punished. I might as well have fun. Eat, drink, and marry, lest tomorrow I die. That's one attitude. The other attitude will be, I better work hard as much as I can and not get distracted in this world. Because you know what? I'm only here for 70 years. King David says, if I have strength, I'll be here for 80 years. Anything over that's a bonus. Right? In most cases, over 70. Any day after that is a bonus. So what am I doing wasting time? There's so much to learn. There's so much to know. Right? How in the world, if I'm not working, I'm not worried about making a living, that my head's not in the books? And I'm not going to the Parsha and learning this. At some point, I'll give an example. Someone pointed something out to me today. Reading we're starting the book of Exodus. Right? So the book of Exodus, Rashi says when a woman gave birth, a Jewish woman gave birth in Egypt, every time she gave birth, she had six children at once. Now it seems from Rashi, it seems that every time a woman gave birth, that was the case. Someone told me today, saw Haggadah from Rav Steinman of blessed memory. And Rav Steinman said, he didn't bring any proof. But he said, when Rashi says that, who says every woman had 6 children? Maybe some did, but not necessarily everybody. Seemingly, according to that, we would say everybody. Right? Every woman who gave birth had 6 kids. She had 3 births, 24 kids, imagine. Jumping off the wall. Right? So, Rav Steinman of blessed memory said, no, doesn't mean every single woman. Didn't necessarily bring a proof for it, but he brings it down to Haggadah on Passover. Anyway, so whatever, it's an interesting thing because simple explanation, not that way. Simple explanation, the woman gave birth, seems according to Rashi and others, that each time she gave birth were 6 kids. That was the case. The 6 kids were healthy, they weren't preemies. Right? Rav Steinman says, no, that doesn't necessarily mean that. Right? It could be. Some did, some didn't. Maybe they had 1 kid. Maybe they had 2 kids. Maybe they had 3. But who says every woman had 6 kids? That makes you think. Right? Someone mentioned last week, interesting enough, I might actually speak about it in my Parsha video tonight. Someone had asked the question that Yaakov dies. When Yaakov dies and Pharaoh allows the children, Yosef and the brothers to go bury him, why didn't he go with him? Then Yaakov gave him a blessing. Yaakov gives him a blessing. Right? So I heard someone asked me this. So what happened over here? Why didn't he go? Doesn't he have gratitude? Yaakov gave him a blessing. Why doesn't he have gratitude? I have an answer, potential answer. I don't know if it's right or not, but I have a potential answer. If it's the same Pharaoh that forgot about Joseph and what he did, he doesn't know what gratitude is. If he doesn't know what, if it's the same king, if it's a different king, then you throw out that explanation. But potentially he could say if he didn't have gratitude and he forgot who Joseph was and everything that he did, he's certainly not going to have gratitude that Yaakov gave him a blessing. Potential. I'm not saying I saw the question asked. I'm not saying I saw it answered. I'm saying potentially, maybe that's an answer. But isn't it interesting? That's what Torah is. You think about different things. Right? Your mind is always involved in thinking about Torah. But we get distracted. We get beaten down in life. We said this a lot. But the mistake that people make, and again, I hear it a lot from a lot of different people. And they say, but I'm doing this, I'm doing so many good things, as if to say, God, you have to answer my prayers. And I want to make clear, God does not have to do that. That's a mistake. If God does, okay. God, you say, God, listen, this is very hard for me to deal with. Take it away. Take away the suffering. Make it easier. Do this, do that, whatever a person needs. God can say yay or nay. Or if a person really wants something, God will just sit there and say no. And he wants you to pray more. He wants you to pray harder. He wants you to work harder. But do we deserve, and that's the question, do we deserve that God answers? There are so many things we do wrong. God can say, I should answer you. Who are you? Who are you? I should answer you. Right? But I'm not going to make it so depressing here. Because the person's going to say, I acknowledge you. I say the Shema 3 times a day. I'm doing the best I can. You're right. I fail at this. I failed at that. I never should have cursed. I never should have done this. You're right. Right? God should have mercy on all of us. So why would God answer our prayers? Because he has mercy. He does chesed with us. And maybe he feels you got the message. God said, okay, I'm going to take it away. Now I'm going to take it away because I think you got the message. I had an Odyssey for 17 years. Obviously, God didn't think I got the message. I am pretty stubborn. That's true. Right? I'll say that about myself, no question. Right? But did you get the message? Are you getting the message? By COVID, did we get the message? Did we change anything? Heard Rabbi Fran ask this question. He said, did we change anything? Anything? God says, I turned the world upside down. Riots in America, all kinds of things. People lost their businesses, lost everything. Did it change anybody? Did it change what you do on a regular basis? And for most of us, I guarantee the answer is no. And if people have changed, that's great. They changed something. Says Rabbi Fran, he should be well. He says, God wants to see us change anything. Can be something minor. But show you feel the pain, you understand. You got the message. If you don't get the message, couldn't it be, and I don't want to say this, but I'll say it. Couldn't it be if we don't get the message, it could be a lot worse? Because my Rebbe says, I've heard him say a number of times, if a person acknowledges, a miracle was done for them, but they didn't change. They didn't change anything. Right? Not one thing. And they acknowledge it was a miracle. Don't you think that would tick God off? He said, wow, look at my puny creation over here. He acknowledges that it was a miracle. And he's going back and doing the same stupid things he's doing before. If I was playing God, which thank God I'm not, because a lot of people be in trouble. And that is if I saw how man treated me and for what I do for them. And they say, but I want a hoodie. I want the merit. Why do you deserve the merit? It's what you created to do. But if we understood the bigger scheme of things, we understood who God is, what he wants from us, what we're doing here, God does not owe us anything, nothing. The fact that he does chesed with us, he gives us life, we should be thankful with that. You want more? Okay, you can pray for it. Doesn't mean God's going to give it to you. Right? And if he does, okay. So I'm saying, even in the last 17 years, I've been up, I've been down a lot. I hope I got certain messages. But did I change exponentially the way I should have? Probably not. And God says, so why did I do this for you? Why did I change things? So now I'm going to do this, do that. But we think and we make the mistake and think because I'm doing the right thing and I'm going in the right path, God owes me. And God's going to change it. Doesn't mean that. So a person can come out and say, but that's not fair. And let me ask you, is living life all about being fair? It's not about being fair. There are people, don't have great IQs, totally immoral, promiscuous and all that, making millions. Millions! There are other people have more than half a brain, trying this, trying that, and they struggle. And they're going in the right path. Does that mean everything goes the way we want? No. But a person's going to say it's upside down. Totally upside down. You know what? If someone is a potato farmer in Idaho, no offense to anyone who's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho, so God will make it easy for them. They'll pay a price. They'll pay a price later. But in the end, if things go easy for them, couldn't it be true? God, has to repay them for whatever mitzvah they did. They gave a little bit of charity, helped Granny cross the street. God has to repay them, and he's going to wipe them out when they die. They may die a horrible death. Not only that, they may get spiritually cut off. We don't know what's going on. But just because someone else has it easier, and they're doing the wrong thing, and they're totally promiscuous, and all, and they cheat, they steal, and all this and all that, you can say life's not fair. Read the book of Job. It's not about being fair. It has nothing to do with being fair. Right? It's how God does with each individual. Based on what we've done, based on where our soul came from. Yeah, we want things to change. We want God to take away suffering that we go through. And suffering builds us. That's all true. God doesn't have to. Totally doesn't have to. Right? But the fact that he does is a chesed. Because we do more things wrong than right in many ways. But there's another factor involved. The other factor is when you're close to the king, the punishment is much greater. If you grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho, you don't know any better. But if you know better, and you still mess around, and you're still doing the wrong thing here and there, whatever it is, so now that you're close to the king, it's catch-22. Close to the king. So the king says, what are you doing over here? Person got a good friend, very close friend. And you're in dire straits, you need them, they don't come through. For whatever reason. Does that friendship stay the same? Probably not. Why? Because you wanted to count on this person. Can't be counted on now. They can't be trusted. God entrusted us in this world to serve him, to be a light into nations, to do what he wants. Maybe he entrusted the wrong creation. Right? Disagreement between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. The house of Hillel, house of Shammai, the Gemara says for 2.5 years. They were arguing. It's a good thing man was created. A bad thing, good, bad, good, bad. 2.5 years they're arguing. And they finally came to the conclusion it was a bad thing. Man was created. But you know what? God created us. We have to look into our actions. And our actions don't measure up. And the fact that they don't measure up, we don't do what we're supposed to do. Why should God keep us alive? Why shouldn't we suffer even more? I'm going to tell you, don't ask for it. Don't ask for it. We don't want it anymore. It's hard, but that's how we grow. Right? So the answer is, yeah, when the chips are down, you learn more, you say more Tehillim, you lay yourself on the ground and you say, God, you're 100% in charge. You're the only one in charge. This is hard, and that's hard, and the other thing's hard, right? Could be a million different things going on at once. Very well could be. And then we get broken. God says, I don't want you to be broken. I want you to serve me with a full heart anyway. Right? I want you to serve me with great joy. How can I serve you with great joy when I'm beaten down? The question is perspective. It's all perspective. I'm not saying it's easy. There's a mind-heart disconnect. Right? You know, the mind can know what to do. The mind can see the bigger picture. Got to put it in your heart. I want to make clear, there's nothing that's instantaneous. Even a person prayed the greatest they've ever prayed. Does that mean the prayer is going to get answered? No. Why would it mean that? One thing has nothing to do with another. The fact that God changes his mind and he allows things to happen in a positive way and all that, huge. Does he have to do that? No. He doesn't have to do that. The hard thing is, and I've had this myself, I'm sure everybody has. When some things go wrong, everything goes wrong. One thing after another. Like bam, 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 bam. This, whatever. At the beginning of the week. One thing happened, another thing happened, like 3 or 4 things. Bam, 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 bam. Right? I didn't get broken by it. It was a little bit annoying. Things I had to deal with. Okay. Right? But you're going to say, well, it's overkill. It's too much. Question is how we view it. And a lot of these things can take away a lot of transgressions also. Tremendous amount, it can be an atonement, as well. But when a person goes through it, it's hard. Right? But people are going to say, not only that God owes them, but why should this person have it easy and I don't? That's not the question. We're not looking at what anyone else has. It doesn't matter what they have. Because even if they have a lot, again, God could give them what they want now in this world because they did a mitzvah too. The next world they're finished. So isn't it better we struggle and have a portion of the world to come than have it easy? Say, okay, I want somewhere in between. I don't want it so hard, I don't want it so easy. Fine. Doesn't work that way. That means our mentality has to change. That's what it means. Right? There's no such thing as instantaneous. You're going to say, but this has lasted a long time. Okay. Person go through something, could be weeks, could be months. Sickness. Someone God forbid has cancer. Go through treatment, go through chemotherapy and they feel bad and this and it takes them a while to feel better. It takes days, years off their life. Well, let's say now they're in remission, whole different thing. But in the back of their mind, they're like a time bomb waiting to tick. Someone asks, wouldn't it be better for Hashem to interact with his servants that are actually trying versus those who don't care? Why? There's a test over here. The person's got it easy. What can he say? He can say, see, I don't do anything. I spit in God's face, according to you, on a regular basis. Now I have it easy and you don't. So how do you explain that? So we explain why. Because we're closer to the king. We have more responsibility. This person who's the biggest question they're going to ask, I put ketchup or mustard on my hot dog. You think God's going to deal with them like this? Of course not. He'll make it easy for them. He'll give them whatever they want. Right? For the sake of, the one mitzvah that they've done or whatever. They could say that. That's not a contradiction. It's not even a question. Right? If you look at Jewish history, we're the chosen people. Aren't we the most picked on nation in the world? Forget about the blacks, not even close. Can't hold the candle of what we've been through over the last 2,000 years. Exile, pogroms, temple destroyed, crusades, being gassed, murdered, tortured. Nobody, no nation's gone through what we've gone through. Right? So that's the question. But you chosen people. So read the second paragraph of the Shema, memorize it. You do the right thing. God gives water. God gives, takes care of all our needs. Take care of our crops. We do the wrong thing. There's hell to pay. Right? Read Parshas Ki Savo. All the curses. If you don't listen to what I say, all those curses, 98 curses, they've all come true, unfortunately. So the closer you are to the king, the more you're punishable. That's the way it works. So it doesn't matter. Those who don't care, those who are atheists, they're gonna say, see, I don't do anything. I'm doing okay. So you're the chosen people. Yeah, but you don't understand what the chosen people means. Chosen people doesn't mean everything goes our way. Not at all. We're given more responsibility. If we're giving more responsibility, we're closer to the king. Doesn't it mean even minor infractions we're going to pay a heck of a price for? That's what it means. And if you're not holding anywhere, God can give you everything in this world, you get nothing in the next world. That's not a contradiction. The easiest example, look at Abraham. Right? Everyone was worshiping, their own God. Here's Bob, my pocket God, don't leave home without him. What did Abraham go through? Thrown in the fiery furnace, wife gets taken, right? Famine, has to fight the 5 world powers, saves only remaining relative Lots. It's got to go through circumcision, best for last. God's like, Abe, what do you think of my covenant? The closer he is, look at all the tests he went through. So you can say, but it's not fair. It's not a question about being fair. If everything would be made easy, everyone's going to want to join the Jewish people. God's not interested. But now that you're a Jew or born a Jew or you want to be convert, realize there are serious repercussions for what we do. By a non-Jew also, by the no ID laws, some of them be liable for a death penalty. It's also pretty serious. But if you're close to the king, and the reason why is it more serious? It's more serious because these things are universal. You can't make an excuse, say, I didn't know. Can't say, well, I didn't know about that. What do you mean it's universal? You didn't know you weren't allowed to steal, you weren't allowed to do this. How do you not know that? Right? So we have greater obligation. Greater obligation means the closer you are to the king, you mess up, the consequences are more severe. Someone who's a potato farmer and idol, does it matter what they do? Doesn't matter what they do. God will just give them everything, fine. He's going to knock them off. Doesn't mean they don't have trials either. They don't go through certain difficulties. Fine. But you might say, well, they have a lot easier than us. Okay. But would you rather have fantasy? Or would you rather, have the real deal, and realize the repercussions for our actions? That's what it's all about. Second paragraph of the Shema. You got to get it down. You got to look at what it says and see clear. You do what you're supposed to do. God gives us rain, gives us food. Everything's good. You do the wrong thing, there's payback. That's the bottom line. Right, so an atheist can say, see, I don't do anything. I don't keep anything. Must not be a God. Look what's going on with you. Well, that doesn't mean anything. You don't understand how it works. Because if we show there is a God, so there are repercussions. You can do what you want. You can have it easy. God can give you lots of money and all this and all that. You don't seem to suffer at all. Very good. But that means you're not going to get anything in the next world. So we that struggle and suffer and work hard, so we may get tossed around in this world. We may suffer, but we have what to look forward to in the next world. 100%. And the thing is, you get beaten down in life, someone here points out, so now you go back and forth, you became angry. You're right. Trials are hard. Right? A father, may have to punish a child, but it's to the benefit of the child. So when we see every day, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha, you have to serve God with great joy. So I'll give people another free piece of advice. Write down 10 things you're thankful for. Any 10 things you're thankful for. You're healthy, one thing. Right? You're parnasa, sometimes better, sometimes worse. You're living on the street. Right? 10 things. Write 10 things that you're thankful for. Whatever they are. Now, when you're down in the dumps and life seems impossible, before you rip up this list, look at it. I know you're going to rip it up afterwards, but look at it. And look at all what you have to be thankful for. You have to see things in perspective. It's hard to see things in perspective when you're being down with life. You're right. Someone says you become angry or spiteful. Is that a sin? It's not good. Definitely not good. Be one thing, person falls into depression, right? And then a mental illness. Okay, that's a whole nother issue. I don't want to get into that. That's a whole nother issue. Right? But, someone can get frustrated. They can get angry. But you see, if you live what duties of the heart, what the Chovos Levavos says, and you realize everything comes from God, it's to my benefit, and you internalize the message, then why are you getting angry? You're going to say, someone who went through a red light, they hit me. They hit my car, damaged, or damaged it more than once, hit me, whatever the case is. And you got knocked around. So, you know what the Chovos Levavos says? Chovos Levavos says, whoever did any of these things to you, you should go up to them, you should hug them, you should thank them for giving you the ability to overcome your anger, to work on your anger. He doesn't say that's for the righteous. He says that's your obligation because God's giving you an opportunity, giving a golden opportunity. What's the first thing we're going to do? Someone goes through a red light, was texting, smashes into our car. Didn't cause us necessarily any damage, scared the daylights out of us. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to go out of the car and start screaming at the person. That's the first thing you're going to do. That's a natural reaction. That's not what God wants you to do. Chovos Levavos says you should go. I don't know anybody holding by this. It's very hard to do, right? But think about it. God's giving you an opportunity. The opportunity is to overcome anger. So you should run over there and hug the person and say, thank you for giving me this opportunity. You're going to say, Rabbi, no one's holding there. I don't know if they are or they're not. He's telling you that's your obligation. That's your obligation. They're going to say, but that's the way we have to live life. Because if God's the one in control, that person's just a stick. Why am I yelling at the stick? God's just using that person to get to you. Right? But who's the real person that did it? God. Right? Like this guy says, oh, Rabbi, he's talking to Rabbi Weinberg, blessed memory of Eshet Torah. He says, it's on my motorbike, it's telling me about God. I slipped on oil, went over a cliff. I said, God, save me. I reached out, there was a tree. Motorbike got smashed, picked myself up, not a scratch. God and I are pretty tight. So what did Rabbi Weinberg say? That's very good. Who threw you off the cliff? You got to remember what's going on over here, how things look, how God runs the world. He gives us opportunities every day to thank Him for everything we have. You have difficulties? We all have difficulties. The question is how we deal with them. Right? Could we get angry? It's a natural occurrence. It's a natural thing to get angry. You say, I'm keeping your mitzvahs, this is how you treat me. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem. So the reality is what's God saying over here. This is what you deserve. This is what I want you to have. Doesn't matter if it's easy or not. Doesn't matter at all. Your goal is to overcome the things I put you through or you put yourself through. You may have done it to yourself. God could have done it to you as well. But if I realize everything comes from Him, and these are all tests, and He wants me to be better, even though it's very hard, guess what? then nothing affects me in a negative way. Because now I understand where it comes from. You're going to say, Rabbi, that's easy. How do I put that in my heart? That's a whole different thing. That I would agree is a whole different thing. But we have to understand where it comes from. We have to understand that mentality. Once we understand the mentality, that's a difference. That's a whole, that's a whole different thing. Most people don't understand the mentality. Most people think, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. God should answer me. Why should he answer you? That's the mistake. That's the big mistake. God doesn't have to answer you. He's testing you. Read the book, Derech Hashem. Go through the book, Derech Hashem, the way of God. He answers. We're put in this world to be tested. Evil doesn't run rampant forever. We don't go through trials, difficulties forever. Might feel like forever. Right? But they're there to build us up. And as the Chol Levava says, why are you yelling at the stick? You're yelling and screaming, this guy hit your car, or he ran you over, did these other things. Right? Maybe a person is, maybe they're not, whatever the case is. That person's just a vehicle, no pun intended. He's a vehicle being used by God. That's it. Only being used by God to get to you. So the real thing is I have to internalize the message. What does God want from me? Right? I have to get the message. Right? If I don't get the message, I'm in trouble. But that's what God wants. He absolutely wants me to get the message. The person is just being used over here. If the person is just being used, what am I getting accepted as a person? Right? That's our mentality. That's our mentality. But yeah, if we get angry, that means we're lacking in emunah. Some level. Because we're saying, I don't deserve this. Or maybe a person saying, God forbid, God's not in charge of it. What's going on? I'm not saying a person saying that necessarily, but why does the person get angry? They're frustrated, they're suffering, they're going through difficulty. But where does it all come from? It all comes from above. So a person gets angry, getting angry at God, right? And it doesn't matter why we go through it. See, that's another mistake. Who cares why we're going through it? Question is, what am I doing now? How am I dealing with it? And then maybe down the line, you see maybe other doors had to open or whatever. It's hard to see that. I agree. Very, very hard to see that. But even so, we're saying, God, you know what you're doing over here. God forbid. That's what a person's saying. Or saying you're not in charge. Random things happen. That's what an atheist will say. It's random. No such thing. So what's a measure for a measure? I don't know. You know what? In a lot of times, it doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. Because I may never figure out in 10 lifetimes. If I don't figure out in 10 lifetimes, move on. Right? We want closure. We want answers. We're not always going to get answers. We pray, sometimes we may never get answers. I can tell you one thing. God does not want to hear, why are you doing this to me? If I was God, I put on my funny glasses, my funny mustache, and I would say, you're asking me that question? You're squeaky clean? Prayer, interaction with others, whatever. You care for what you see, you care for how you speak. Right? That list I could have a lot of fun with. You'll never get out of bed. I may never get out of bed. There are a million things going on here. Right? If there are a million things going on, how can I even ask that question? It's probably things I did, probably things I said, probably things I thought. Probably a lot of different things. A heck of a lot of different things. So if that's the case, then what am I asking? Yeah, you don't want it. You want to get rid of it. I understand. But what's the question that I'm asking? Right? If I were playing God, I wouldn't even take the question. I would say, you gotta be kidding. You don't even deserve to be alive. Let me show you certain things you've done. Today, yesterday, a month ago. And then you're going to sit there going, that's what you're going to do. 100%. So how do you prevent from getting overwhelmed and going through mood swings and up and down? Because you have to realize, again, the mantra is God, you're the one in charge. That's the mantra. Right? The more we think into these things, the worse it is. I'm not saying you blow it off. I'm not saying you just say, well, it's difficult, whatever, move on. Right? You gotta internalize the message. You gotta try and fix things, no question. Certainly a person has to go through certain things. at the same time, we got to focus on what he wants us to do. Because the inclination will say, see, there's no God. It's all random. Forget about learning. Forget about this. Nothing's working. Yeah, it sounds very good. But, I mentioned before, if a person thinks they have it difficult in life, which I'm not saying we don't, pick up the book of Psalms and read it. Read it and see what King David goes through. And see what he says. He doesn't complain. Right? Being chased by King Saul, being chased by his sons, wanting to kill him. He says, all I want to do is Psalm 27. All I want to do is sit in your house and learn. I don't deserve it, God, but you're going to take care of my needs. He's got faith like you can't imagine. But look what he went through. He doesn't say, God, why'd you put me through this? He's not asking the question. He's saying, I don't deserve to be helped, but I know you're going to help me anyway because you have mercy. Read through the book of Psalms. Just see what he goes through. Right? What we go through is worse than what he went through. Look at the test of Abraham. All the difficulties. Look what happened to Isaac. What happened to Jacob. Look what's happened to the Jewish people throughout the millennium. Yeah, very easily we could complain and say, why this, why that, why the other thing? Why do we have to go through suffering? What would they say in the desert, the book of Numbers? Where's the meat? Where's the fish? Where's the watermelon? I missed the watermelon in Auschwitz. Really? You were suffering like a dog in Egypt. You want to go back there? Complain. And realize how good they have it. But they just weren't on the level. God wanted to bring them up to the level of unbelievable belief in him, in Amunah. Didn't happen. They failed at a certain level. But that's the greatest generation of all time. You got to say, so what about us? Doesn't matter. That's not the comparison. We have to have that faith anyway. And we have to work hard at it. You're right. We have to beat it into our brains. You have to keep saying over and over and over and over. That's what my Rabbi said by COVID. God, you're the one in charge. You're the one who runs the world. There's nothing else but you. You. You're the one who runs things. Has nothing to do with me. I'm just happy I'm still alive. I can serve you. I know I'm not doing what I should. I don't do a quarter of what I should, but you have to beat in your brain 100%. Everything comes from him. And it's not to figure out, okay, so why do this? Why? It doesn't matter, right? We have to get that out of our heads. It doesn't matter why this, why that. If we can gain something from it, we see we made mistakes and we keep making the same mistakes. It's one thing. The measure for measure, most times we're not going to figure out. And again, it's irrelevant why. Many times it's irrelevant, right? If you study Musar, you read the gates of repentance, you go through paths of the just. There are a lot of levels to reach. Make it feel like a piece of dirt. So again, if you learn these things and you see, what we're up against, where our struggles are, and all that, and how we fail. Why are we alive? Why should God keep us alive? If you're an omnipresent being and your subjects spit in your face on a regular basis, God has mercy. If he didn't have mercy, we'd all be dead. We'd all be dead. But the fact that you have some people that live and they seem to have it easy, God will take care of them. You don't have to worry. God will take care of them. As I want to point out, you have to know it's all from God. You're right, but it's just when you get beaten down in life, it's hard because it's coming from him. But it's very hard when life, like when we struggle in many different ways. That's true. But the whole point over here, not to beat a dead horse here, but the whole point is the fact that we may think, okay, God, you're the one in charge. But, I want you to take this away, and I deserve for you to take it away. You don't deserve anything. If God wants to take it away, he will. If not, you'll struggle. And you may struggle for a long time in many different areas. So over the last 17 years, I was happy I had one area I struggled in. And it wasn't multiple things. People can struggle multiple things all at once. That's overwhelming. Right? But if, how does a person not get overwhelmed? Get into learning. That's how you don't get overwhelmed. right? I have my mornings, or had at least, 3 of my mornings, go to learn in my Rebbe synagogue. That's worth everything. I just shout out everything else. Totally shout out everything else. Shout out everything else. But when a person's really into learning and really into all these things, so all the other things go away. They come back after you're learning, but the more we work on ourselves, the more we learn Muster, the more we work on our Muna Bitachon, our belief in Him. Yeah, so then that's different. And a number of times certain things happen. So okay, you have to take a loss here. I have to take a loss here. Whatever. Okay, that's what God wants. That's what it's going to be. You're going to say, but isn't that hard? I'm not saying things are easy. It's the mentality. We have to change the mentality. If you don't change your mentality, then everything's a struggle. Why this? Why that? Why the other thing? We have to change our mentality, right? That's really the bottom line. But it's hard, right? 100%. That's the bottom line here. Yeah. So it's hard. I don't disagree. I definitely don't disagree. But at the end of the day, we're gonna work hard over here. We have to work hard on our faith, and that is the test in the air. In the air. Before the Messiah comes, that's the biggest test. Is working on our faith in God. That's what we have to work on constantly. But that's the mantra. God, you're the one in charge. We have to live it. Can't just say it. You got to live it. You got to put it in your heart. That's what you got to do. All right, I'm going to stop there. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday. 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me at Michael Chaim Kaufman or at Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good